You might not have known that Martin Luther King's doctorate was in theology. The left have been diligently scrubbing much of the religious references from King's legacy, ignoring his deep Christian faith as the source of his activism on behalf of equality. Joining us now for reaction, my old friend, radio producer Lee Habib, currently a columnist for Town Hall, who joins us from Memphis, Tennessee, and in Columbia, South Carolina, Antoine Seawright, Democratic strategist and CEO of Blueprint Strategy. Gentlemen, great to see both of you. Lee, you just wrote about this today. You believe that much of the King legacy has become secularized. How so?
Well, listen to the media talk about King. It's going to be Dr. King, Dr. King, Dr. King, and not Reverend King. Listen to the speeches they play. It's the secular ones. I would urge your audience to go to Google and type in knock at midnight sermon. And it's a knock at midnight sermon, a deeply religious sermon. Or when Jesus calls a man a fool. Indeed, the source of Martin Luther King's inspiration was a book called the Bible, which he quoted more than any 100 books combined, Laura.
We have actually a graphic of the speech you're talking about, the sermon you're talking about. Martin Luther King. Moral principles have lost their distinctiveness. For modern man, absolute right and wrong are a matter of what the majority is doing. Right and wrong are relative to likes and dislikes and the customs of a particular community. We've unconsciously applied Einstein's theory of relativity, which properly described the physical universe, to the moral and ethical realm. This mentality has brought a tragic breakdown of moral standards, and the midnight of moral degeneration deepens. Antoine, I love that passage that Lee put in his column today. But he's right. You don't really hear Dr. King talking about moral relativism. I don't know what he would think about what's happened to our country today, but that was pretty amazing.
Well, unless I'm living in some other universe that you guys are not living in, the reference to Dr. King that we make here in South Carolina and places I go is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, because he was a pastor before he was all those other things. And if you look at Dr. King's body of work and the things he's fought for justice and equality and fighting for the least of these, he really stood for what the Bible talks about in Matthew 25 and 40 and fighting for the least of these. Well, when you look at what's going on in our country right now, Laura, I don't think that Dr. King will be pleased about the current people occupying our government on what they feel and what they're doing towards the least of these. Dr. King was about expanding our rights to vote at the ballot box. He was about health care for everyone. He was about making sure that we have a fair and balanced criminal justice system. He was about making sure that poor people have the resources they need to be pulled out of certain situations. I don't think we have that going on right now in our government, Lauren.
Okay, so let's see what CNN tweeted today. You say people are recognizing King's religious legacy.
The people CNN, I know. I was in a church today where we referenced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, in a church, that makes sense, but I'm talking on regular media. CNN's tweet, he's an environmental hero. He was a socialist before it was cool. He never let a political disagreement turn nasty. Many Americans have turned up Martin Luther King into a safe holiday mascot, but some say King still speaks in ways that go beyond civil rights. He was a socialist before it was cool. Lee, what about that?
You know, it would be interesting now to look at what Dr. King and Martin Luther King and Reverend King would think about the lurch to the left in America and Europe. Because everywhere in the world where the government leans further left, the churches get smaller. The churches get smaller. And Antoine, this is just a fact. And we know in this great country that the out-of-wedlock birth rate is 40%. That's white, black, and Latino combined. And I would love to know what Reverend King would think about this dissolution of marriage in this country.
I would be curious to know. I would be curious to know what Reverend King would think about the leader of the free world calling NFL athletes who are peacefully protesting SOBs. I would love to see what Reverend King would talk about a budget that comes out of the White House that cuts programs like Meals on Wheels.
But you're making our point,
I would
Antoine.
love to see.
You're making the point of the segment, which you said wasn't valid. The point of the segment is Martin Luther King based his philosophy on the Bible. And when he talked about moral degeneration, that went right to the heart of what Lee was just saying. The degeneration of the family. Once the family dissolves, as it has across all racial lines, especially hard hit, are African-American
Sure.
families and young men. It's hard hit. Once that happens, government can really not save you. It can't save you.
Well,
we have to save ourselves.
Government,
we have to
Lord,
save ourselves.
Government can be a bootstrap for a number of people to pull them out of certain situations. It's called investing where we need to be.
We've tried it for 50 years. 50 years, $5 trillion.
We
what
have
has it
not,
gotten us?
Lord, we have not done that effectively. We have not. Look at K-12 education in this country.
Well, okay, are you for school choice? Are you for school choice?
I am totally against school choice because it will eventually lead us back to a place of segregation.
So you want to keep the kids in underperforming schools? Okay, all right. So you want to keep the kids in underperforming schools?
What I want to do is invest. I want to invest equally, Laura. I want to invest equally in schools to make sure that schools are funded equitably.
But what I would like, you certainly can't blame Trump for Chicago. You certainly can't blame Trump for Baltimore. We don't know what Martin Luther King would probably think about anything.
It's so easy to point back to those situations, but what I can blame Trump for are policies in this country that really hurt a certain segment of the population. That's what I can blame Trump for.
I don't know what Barack Obama did for 8 years. Don't talk when I'm talking, and I'll let you talk. But we're out of time, but Barack Obama was president for 8 years. We had skyrocketing crime among hard-hit communities that Martin Luther King did care a lot about in Baltimore,
and so you're going to point to,
and it wasn't on Donald Trump's watch. It wasn't on Donald Trump's watch. It was on the Democrats running those cities who are more interested in keeping people angry and giving people real solutions. That's my view, guys. Great segment.